So hi guys, welcome to SKLearn. Great to see you, all of you. So what we are going to understand today about the outliers. You know, mm, data science project is quite in high demand. In fact, machine learning. And one of the method of doing a project in data science, that's exploratory data analysis. That's a preparation of data before moving into the machine algorithm. And one of the methods that's called the feature engineering, part of feature engineering method is treatment of your outliers. So what is actually outliers? Outliers is nothing. If you have data and that's if the data contains extreme values, that's called the outliers. So suppose in a class, a student of height somewhere around 5 to 6, but if any student is having height of 9, then in that case, that is student will count as a outlier from the class. So we need to treat these outliers before moving into the algorithm part. Now we understood the outliers. So how to treat the outliers? So there are two ways to treat the outliers, mainly z-score and the IQR method. Both method is quite known method, but having a different approaches. Z-score work on the normal distribution data, whereas IQR perfectly work on the when you have skewed data. If you can see my screen, I already shared about the Z-score. So today we want to go, and I would like to highlight how you can detect your outliers through the Z-score and how you can treat the data through the Z-score. Now, just see this, what I have shared the screen. Do you have understanding of the normal distribution curve? In case of Z-score, if data is more than 3 standard deviation plus minus, that treated as a outliers. So what is the normal distribution? In that case, if your data having a mean, median values and mode values all equal, in this case, if you can see this picture, my mean is 0, then the standard deviation is 1, and standard deviation is 2, and standard deviation 3, similarly, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. So suppose my distribution of data 1 to 100, then it is 50% is my average. Then my 50% data will lies right hand side, and the 50% data will lies in the left hand side. That will be plus minus 3 standard deviation. That's the assumption, or that's actually theory of z-score. So how we can calculate the z-score? It's simply in terms of the formula x minus mu divided standard deviation. So x is your value and mu is your average of your data or a particular column or the variable, and they divide it to standard deviation. Then you will find the z-score. Now we can understand this through the practical approach. So now what I have, I loaded a data set from the Seaborn library. That's an inbuilt data set actually. Let's see this data set. Oh, library is not defined. So these are the library. I'm using Jupyter Notebook for to solve this problem, to go through it. Okay, so now I uploaded the data, I loaded the data. Now can we see the data? Yeah, we can see the data. So now we have data which has survival, pre-class, gender, age, and all these information. There are various variables, so around 15 variables in 891 rows. We have seen the data. Now we can find out this age having some missing values. Deck has some missing values. So these are all not required right now for outlier treatment. But just we want to understand the distribution of, suppose if I can pick the any variable, suppose if I pick the fair and I want to treat the outliers in this, can I see the outlier in this? Let me first understand, because the assumption says your data should be normally distributed. So let's understand the first whether my data is normally distributed or not. So what I'm doing here, I'm just calling a function and seeing that the histogram for this my fair, the distribution of the data. What I can observe here, my data is quite skewed towards the right and having some outliers. So what we ideally, in this case, we should not use z-score, but what we are try to understand why this should not be used on the skewed data. Let's say the box plot, what kind of outliers we have. Now we can see this. Now we have various outliers in this data. Now we understood these are the extreme values in the data set. Now we want to understand what is the mean and standard deviation. So the mean is 32 and a standard deviation is 49. What it says, your standard deviation is quite high. It means your data is quite spread, not nearest to the mean. So data is not normally distributed, although let's understand. So what I did here, let's understand this. What I said, if I want to find out z score for first item, df dot mean, three, 1 into two standard deviation. It's my mistake because I used to do this. So now what I created this, I created a data column in the data is called to, that's called the z score fair. Okay, let's move this. Okay, now we can see the data to the day with the Z score. So now I have created a Z score. So what is a Z score? So X is your fare, mean of fare, and then divided to standard deviation. So that's basically your area of distribution from the mean on the normal distribution curve. Now, I want to identify number of outliers in this. So let's decide the lower range. I decided 3 standard deviation, what we already understood through this, that the 3 standard deviation include 99.7% of data. Beyond this, this treated as a outliers. So we decided here mean minus 3 standard deviation. That's a lower range, and upper range mean plus 3 standard deviation. Now we have value that is somewhere around 100 minus 116 and 180. Now we can find out, we can cap it. So here what we did, outliers, we created object with the iteration pair, and we cap it lower or upper range. And if anything beyond this lower and upper range, which I already declared here, treated as an outlier. So now we have number of outliers from the system, and these are the outlier values. Can we see this? So what I did, I just create a filter, a kind of sort here with a Z score greater than 3. So these are the which is outliers, seems outlier in the data more than 3 sigma, 3 standard deviation, and minus 3 standard deviation. Now, how we can remove the outlier from here? So what we did, we just dropped the outliers from the fare less than lower range, what we have already declared here, and the upper range. Okay, now can we say this? Now we don't have outliers here. So more than 3 standard deviation plus minus 3 standard deviation, we could not find any data. So we drop the data from the database. Can we see the box plot now after treating it? We can see this, still we have outliers in this. So that is actually purpose of doing this. The data is not a skewed data. The data is not a skewed data. Hence, this method is not working properly. The data is skewed data. That's why it is not working properly. If you would have a normal distribution or data normally distributed, then it could work perfectly. In this case, we should use IQR method. Thanks for watching. sklearn will come in next session with the IQR method of treatment. Thank you for watching.